Welcome to the Interconnected Youth Podcast, where we dive into social issues from a youth perspective. I have been speaking about this for about 3 months now, so it's excellent to finally be here at episode 1. And so today I'm joined by guest Nerlan Flowers and Harty, and so I look forward to them introducing themselves right now. So probably Nerlan, you can begin.
Well, good morning again. My name is Nerland Flores, and it's an honor being here, first time on the podcast, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Harty Cook and I just want to thank Jaliza for having me today on the first episode of the podcast.
All right, so since this is our first episode, let's just do a matter of housekeeping. So basically, how this podcast was kind of brought together was that I've been having conversations with persons for some time now saying that they need youth representation on a higher level. And so, what better way than to start a podcast and to post it on social media knowing that it will have an eternal footprint per se? And so, throughout this season, it will be 7 episodes, and I look forward to the guests that we will have here. In terms of the term youth, we will have guests ranging from ages 18 to, of course, ages 35. And so that's what we're going to categorize as youth. And so we look forward to having the guests from those different age brackets to join us in the conversation. And so today, our theme for today is the power of youth voices. I think that there's no better way to begin this podcast than understanding that every voice plays a role and every voice has an importance. Even though they usually say raise your words instead of your voice, it's important to understand that you need to raise your voice for issues that matter. And so many may ask, why start a podcast? And why talk about the importance of raising your voice? I could tell you it's because we basically see a generation of people with insights and stories that are important, and it's important for everyone to know that your stories are important, they have validity, and they add value. Your contributions to the world, to the society that we live in, you never know what your contributions can do. So it's interesting to look at that perspective. And so the first question that we will put on the table, as that is the format that we will use every week, the question on the table, the first one is, why do you think that your youth voice matters?
Well, for one, youth voice matters. Well, my voice matters because, like you mentioned, each of us has our own story. We have different experiences. And so, what we experience or what didn't work for us, we're able to speak to others and say, okay, I went through this similar experience, especially when you're talking to your friends, because you and them have that relationship, you have that bond over years, so you're able to be honest as possible, open, raw, cry, emotional, everything, and let them, okay, so I experienced this and it didn't work for me, but let me hear what you have to say, and then we can talk about it and see, find the best possible solution for whatever you're going through. And then we're able to share with other people as well, too. Other people who can relate to what we're going through, what we've been through.
And I think a big part of that too is like the name of the podcast itself is interconnected. And I think sometimes we fail to realize that each of our lives are linked, they're interconnected. And so what I go through, you probably might not go through the same thing, but it's the same principle. And so we'll be able to assist each other in that way. And so, can you just elaborate a little bit more on how have your friends or how have you been able to select your safe net that has been able to contribute to your life?
Well, for one, it's been rough, especially I would say since COVID. You realize who really, really there with you, and that I think a lot of people have been through that because we were all alone in that COVID time, not able to see each other. And then right before COVID, I had a life-changing experience, and which I didn't expect, and so that opened up my eyes a lot. And the very few friends who I spoke to about my that devastating experience, I changing, they stuck by me because they know the person that I am. They really and truly know my characteristics. They know Nerlan not do this, Nerlan not do that. Yes, Nerlan have your ways, but he will not do X, Y, Z because they've been with me since day one. And so those are the ones that I stick with through thick and thin. And they've seen the rawness of who I am. They've seen me at my lowest, they've seen me at my peak, they've seen me through all stages. And they love me regardless of what, and I love them the same way. And so that's how I get like really, really, really close to them and I stick to them. And I might tell them everything, but when certain things come up and I need to be honest with them, I tell them. And without that judgment, without that fear of them going out and talk out your business to other people. And I have that because they know me and I know them. And like I said, we're interconnected. We've been friends at almost 30 years. And so, like I said, we've grown up with each other.
All right. And so for you, Daharti, you are the youngest one here. And so what's your perspective of why is your youth voice important?
Well, my youth voice is important because like like how
Nerlan.
Nerlan.
Nerlan would say, like it brings us together. So it's a way of communication. Like even with this podcast, like we're creating a safe environment where we can voice issues that we daily can't really how to say it? We can't discuss because we're sometimes afraid. We don't know if it's okay, but like the podcast will give like everyone that somehow there's someone who's going the same issue as you. So like the that's why my voice matters, because like I'm giving my opinions on something, or I'm sharing my story. Maybe someone out there feels me or knows what I'm going through and stuff like that. So
And they can relate as well
yeah.
too.
All right. And so we know that when we're talking about the idea of youth voices, it comes along with activism. And so we know that there was a time where persons, when they wanted to display activism or take a stand on certain things, it would be, they would make signs, they would come in numbers and all of that. But if you're noticing recently, social media has become our protest sign. And so that has allowed us in this unprecedented era for us to mobilize. It has allowed us to speak out. We oftentimes say that people prefer to hide behind a screen and behind a phone rather than to actually go physically and stand up for the things that they believe in. And so it really leads me to wonder, and this is the second question that we will place on the table. Is social media activism per se, is it something that has been working out for us? Have we allowed ourselves to be heard properly through these means of social media?
Wow. I would say yes and no because, like I said, it's a somewhat boundary, a safety net for people who, but at the same time, you could still say who made the comments, who say certain things. And I think still going out there, actually showing out, like for instance, if they say, okay, we call all young people to come out and demonstrate against certain things because we are the leaders, we are the future, we are this, we're supposed to voice our opinion, we're supposed to fight for certain things. And a lot of people want to come on social media. Yeah, I want to do this, tag this one, tag that one. Yeah, I want it out there, I want to come. And when the day is there for show up, and nobody pull up. Like we're going on, yeah, you make big plan on social media, they say X, Y, Z, so why not come out and back up your words?
Well, you see, when you bring that up, I think oftentimes, yes, I believe that they have a lot of people where they could be loud on social media and they could be rowdy, but when it comes to put pen to paper and put words to action, they aren't able to be there. But at the same time, I view social media as a powerful tool, and I kind of always will, because I feel like it gives you a reach that you would not be able to have without it. And so I will always use it as a powerful tool. But I think the reason why a lot of our um activisms and our the things that we would want to do, the protests and the things that people actually orchestrate, the reason why they don't work out is exactly that, is that individuals do not know how to put pen to paper because we've become so comfortable behind a screen.
Yeah.
And I think in many instances we shortchange ourselves because you never know what something can become if we would come together in unison physically.
Mhm.
And so I think that's an interesting way to look at it. And so what are your thoughts on that?
So like I totally agree with what you all are saying, but like social media has like its toxic side, like in general. So like there are people that will say you wanna do like a demonstration. There are people that will be against that demonstration, and that's why sometimes people lose this courage to come out because they see those comments, because they see, oh, like you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't get involved in this and that because you're this and that. And that's where like social media is a good platform to to voice your concerns and stuff, but it does not really have the effect as something that's physical, because if you're physically there, you can get make sure you get like an impact your voice out there, because they will see it, news will see it, everything can see it.
And like many might say that, okay, this is kind of a hypocritical conversation, being that we are somewhat behind a screen and behind a mic. But the reality is that as much as this series that we are formulating right now, as much as it is words, there I want to get to a place where we can put it to action. And that's basically what we want to do. We want to be able to incite and encourage action among people. It's about feeling connected to each other to the point that we know that, okay, if someone is standing up against something or standing up for something, it's because it's of good measure and it's of goodwill, and I need to support it without fearing what the outcomes might be. And so, we'll continue to delve into the challenges and the solutions that are out there. And basically, every single episode will talk about will bring about, not only talk about, rather, it will bring about this notion of the power of the youth voice. And so, um, another thing that we'll put on the table, the third question that we will put on the table today is, how do you feel your your opinions are received by the older generation? Because we know that there was a generation that came before us. They did what they did. They contributed how they could have contributed. But oftentimes there's a generational gap. And this generational gap exists because the older generation feels as though they can't relate to the younger generation, and the younger generation is of the assumption that the older generation does not give a damn about what we have to say. And so, how do we bridge that gap? And Nerlan, you're the oldest one on this table right now, so you can probably give us further insight into that.
Wow. Wow. Nice one. Nice one. I feel the one on the side just now, but hey, I want to take it. I want to take it.
Listen, age quite wisdom, so
Uh,
don't-
Actually, I'm not the oldest one in the room, so I'm not going on the room. No. Yeah. So, how do we bridge that gap between the older generation? Well, I'm not that old, just to make that very clear. Between my generation and, because my generation include those born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, early 2000s.
more millennial. You know what? More millennial.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been through a lot. I think we passed through what, 5 generations already? About that? About 5 decades, 6 decades. Yeah. So we've been around for a while now. So what we learned growing up from our parents worked to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow older, we get educated. We found out that some of the stuff that they taught us, that they learned from their parents and were trying to pass on to us, not really work. Some stuff, yes, you stick because of tradition, the whole Caribbean mentality. Oh, this is how you do this is how you do that. If you don't do it this way, all sorts of things. So some of the stuff do work,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you try talk to your parents them because you know agree with something, or you try have a discussion with another person who grew up in your parents' generation, and you try to bring it really thin and make them understand your perspective, sometimes they would disagree with you. So that bridging, you still have to do your best to talk with them, make them see, okay, see, you did this, your generation did this, some stuff work, but this is my generation now.
And that can't work, yeah.
And yeah, yes, you must still use some of the basics because you know that will help raise you up, that will help bring you up as a person, the values,
Mm-hmm.
hard work, XYZ. But some of those work, but you still have to intertwine them. Well, what the work for we know, we could still use some of the stuff that we're on our hand or what on the teach we, and we can mesh them together and make something better out of it.
And I think sometimes that's like a hard reality for persons to accept, because I think a lot of the things that the older generation taught us, I'm talking about more my grandmother, my parents,
Mm-hmm.
that they taught us, the principle was there,
Yeah.
the idea was there. But I guess the way that they brought it forth,
Mm-hmm.
or the way that it was taught to us, was rather toxic.
Very,
And
very.
I know older people hate our generation because we use the word toxic a little too much.
Yes,
They always
but
say, "Oh, you everything for una toxic."
but it's true. But it's fact. Like somebody, so sorry, but somebody shit they do toxic man. Like yo, you can't. They can't get past that. If you don't do it this way, you get casted out. If you don't do it, this is the way and you must follow it. This is the way and you must stick with it. And if you don't do it this way, you get boxed out.
And I think that's something too. It's like, in the same way that I expect their opinions to matter to me, I would appreciate if mine would matter to you,
Thank
and
you.
you meet me halfway, because it's that's how relationships work. It's like, okay, I will learn from you, you will learn from me. But a lot of times, older persons will be like, "Oh, but I older than you." Age doesn't matter. You have to remember the generation is much different, extremely different, completely different. The world that they grew up in is not the world that we live in
Thank
now.
you.
And so I think sometimes that's extremely hard for them to accept. And I will never downplay the wisdom of my elders. I will always be appreciative for it. But I know in many instances that they could never understand the things that we go through, because it's completely different.
Some of the experiences they've gone through, we could relate to, like some of the stuff they've been through in their lives, and we could relate to and understand, okay, and then try work through it, whatever. But then, like I said, some of the stuff then just don't work. Simple.
Back to that, like some of the solutions would work like during their generation, but they have to understand that everything's changing now. Technology is growing, like more generations are coming, and it's getting harder and harder for each generation because the problems change every time. And that's one of the biggest issues we meet because they stick to what they know, and that's what's keeping us back because we need to move forward together. So we need to find that gap, even though it's like Nerlan was saying, combine where we can meet in the middle and come up with better solutions for problems.
All right. And so now that we're winding down in terms of our first episode, um, I think we've covered a lot so far. We've spoken about a lot of different angles of how you can look at how you can amplify the youth voice. But everyone's perspective is completely different. So the way I might see it, it's like, okay, well, my way forward, how I will amplify my voice and I will make a difference in my society, is that, okay, for now, I'm in media and I'm studying criminology and criminal justice under the assumption that I can make a difference by bringing awareness, by content creation, bringing all of that together. Awareness to the things that I learn in criminology and criminal justice through media. That's how I view it. But there are other persons that may say, okay, climate change is my thing, And so the way that I want to bring awareness to it is by probably, okay, starting a group, starting this. And then there's maybe someone else that will say, the way I want to bring awareness to music is that I will tutor 5 kids, teach them how to play an instrument. And so it's extremely important to understand that everyone's gifting is different. And you need to understand that your gift is not for you, it's for others. And I feel like a lot of times we blur the lines right there to understand that your gift is not a gift for you, but it's a gift that you can contribute to the world. And so, how do you think that bringing all of this together, how can your gift and your voice mesh together so that you would be able to make a difference in society?
Actually, it's something I never thought about, but like I said, each of us has have our own gifts, our own talents, and whatever it is, by me using my gift, I would say my creativity. That way, that I could probably inspire other kids who see what I do, like in terms of doing my events or being in media. They might want to follow that same footstep. Just by being you, you're inspiring them. Just by you being creative who you are, you inspire your other friends as well too. I have a few friends in my who I grew up with that, like, I would say they're eh, they're eh, they're surprised, they're happy for me with what I'm doing, and then they wish they had the, how to say, the zeal, that drive to do what I do, like to keep going regardless of being, you get knocked down so much time,
Mm-hmm.
you experience so much negativity, you experience a lot of toxic shit, and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going.
And I think that sometimes, like, we shortchange ourselves a lot in life when we stop. When you, like, give up on a dream because, okay, someone stopped me along the way,
Mhm.
something happened along the way. But if you're a person that you give up easily, you'll never see your fullest potential. Because the reality is that's how it's supposed to be, like you rightfully mentioned. You keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And that's the only way that we can do it, because life isn't black and white. And I always say this, it's a phrase I say often. Life isn't black and white. And so there are no two situations that are the same. And so the way that you might approach it will be completely different from the way I will approach it. And so the only thing you can do is work with what you have and basically keep going, like you said.
Yeah.
So like for me, what I'm doing is like I just try to showcase my best of what I'm doing. Like Norlan said, like pushing, like even though they bring you down most of the time, because that's one of the most toxic things that happens in our environment, and that's what I'm trying to show. Like not to let no one opinion bring you down, because that keeps you away from your dream. And my dream right now is to get youth into agriculture, because agriculture is something that like everyone is biased against, because oh, we're touching dirt, this and that. But think about it in the long term, when if we don't have agriculture in our communities, we might not have food, and food is the most important thing, and that's usually the main causes of our sickness too. So like
And can you
everything
just
is
elaborate on that a bit? Because I think it's quite important that you brought that up. Food security is a
mhm.
huge thing that we need to ensure. And so, what have you seen in terms of youth participation in agriculture?
Well, for like in my school, because I go to UB Central Farm, so the numbers are low in students. For me, when I graduated from Bamapan Comprehensive, I'm the only one taking agriculture out of a class of 30. And that says much, because everyone majored in agriculture. And I understand that they have financial issues that we should not undermine, but it's something we should not give up so easily, because education is powerful too, and food security is something that we need to start focusing on, because the older generations are just losing it at this point, because they have climate change, and that's another topic we can touch on. But everything's changing, like we said, and that's how we have to use social media to get our kids together, because social media now is powerful. And even if it's a funny video talking about all like the animals being very demure, still you can get the attentions you can get the attentions of the younger generation, because like they just feel like it's not boring. It's not your typical your advertisement. Join agriculture because you'll get this, this, and that. No, there's other sides to it, and I didn't discover that side till I was there. But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like information about it was so limited. So when I got there, I was just surprised that there's so many things to it that I did not know, and now I enjoy it quite very much.
All right, wonderful. Well, I am grateful that you all made it here for the episode one of this podcast. And we've had a very fruitful discussion to talk about the power of youth voices that really just sets the precedence for the episodes that we have coming up. And so I look forward to episode two, which will be with the same individuals that you have heard from today. And of course, we would like to thank those who have supported us and sponsored us thus far. We know that ID7 in Belmopan has been a big help to us, as well as Sweet Needs. In addition to that, everyone that has sent us a message of encouragement, we appreciate it. And if you have any further discussion that you would like to talk about, you can always comment on this video under it. Yeah. And so, thank you so much. This is the Interconnected Youth Podcast, Season 1, Episode 1. And we look forward to seeing you next time.